Do not call her harmless just because she is smiling. The warning appeared on the security feed 3 seconds before the entire galactic university changed the way it looked at humanity. Emily Carter was standing in the middle of the Nova Prime Transit Hall, holding a paper coffee cup and checking the time on her phone, completely unaware that several floors above her, a group of alien observers had just marked her as a target. To everyone around her, Emily looked exactly like what her records claimed she was. A 21-year-old exchange student from Colorado, a biology major, a quiet person who spent more time studying in the library than attending social events. Someone who still called her parents every Sunday night because her mother worried if she missed even one call. Nothing about her appearance suggested danger. Nothing about her voice suggested power. And that was exactly why they made their mistake. The Karuan analysts had spent 3 days reviewing human records before choosing her. They studied military personnel, explorers, and government officials. They ignored them. Those humans were expected to be difficult. Emily Carter was different. She was ordinary. She has no combat training, one analyst reported. Valor Kess watched the holographic file floating above the table inside the observation room. His blue-gray eyes moved across the information with quiet confidence. No military history, no security background, no special modifications. Another Karuan researcher tilted her head. Then why does the system keep labeling her as high adaptation risk? Valor looked at the final line of the report. Origin planet, Earth. He almost dismissed it. Almost. Across the galaxy, Earth had become a strange subject of debate. Some species described it as a beautiful world. Others described it as a dangerous one. A planet with extreme weather, unpredictable environments, and countless natural threats. But most believed those stories were exaggerated. Humanity was young. Humanity was fragile. Humanity simply had a talent for surviving through technology. That was the common belief. Emily had heard those opinions before. She had heard alien classmates joke that humans were impressive only because they built machines to do the things other species could do naturally. Usually, she just smiled and let them talk. She never felt the need to defend Earth. To Emily, Earth was not a battlefield or a legend. It was home. It was rainy mornings walking to school. It was summer evenings with friends. It was her father teaching her how to fix small things around the house. It was her mother reminding her to bring a jacket even when the weather forecast looked clear. Earth had always been normal to her. The rest of the galaxy simply had a different definition of normal. As Emily left the transit hall that evening, she noticed something strange. The crowd was moving differently. People were laughing, talking, and rushing toward their destinations, but a small part of her attention focused on the details. The unusual silence behind her. The footsteps that stopped when she stopped. The reflection of unfamiliar faces in the glass beside her. She did not panic. She did not run. She simply adjusted the strap of her backpack and kept walking. It was a habit she learned long before she ever left Earth. Pay attention. Stay calm. Understand the situation before reacting. Behind her, Valor Kess watched through the hidden surveillance feed. He expected fear. He expected confusion. Instead, the human student looked around once, took a quiet breath, and continued forward. For the first time, Valor felt something he could not explain. A small question. A small doubt. Maybe the file was missing something. Maybe the galaxy had spent centuries measuring humans the wrong way. Because the person they were preparing to capture was not a soldier, not a warrior, not a legend. She was just a student. And somehow, that made the discovery even more interesting. Valor Kess had tracked hundreds of creatures across dozens of worlds. But he had never followed something that looked so completely ordinary. That was the part that bothered him. The human girl walked through Nova Prime like she belonged there. No nervous glances. No rushed movements. No desperate attempts to disappear. Emily Carter simply carried her backpack, finished the last sip of her coffee, and checked the message waiting on her phone. It was from her mother. Do not forget to eat something that is not from a vending machine today. Emily smiled quietly. Love you too, Mom. To anyone watching, it was a normal moment. A student receiving a reminder from home. But to Valor, it was another unanswered question. Why did a person being observed for capture behave as if nothing was wrong? Inside the Karuan observation chamber, one of his assistants studied the data again. Her heart rate is stable, the assistant said. No signs of elevated stress. That does not match our expectations. Valor looked at the screen. Everyone feels fear. Then why is she not showing it? The question stayed in the room longer than anyone expected. The Karuin were hunters. They understood fear. They understood how most creatures reacted when they realized they were being watched. They froze. They ran. They made mistakes. Emily Carter did none of those things. Earlier that afternoon, Emily had noticed the unusual activity around campus. She had noticed security drones moving in patterns that were slightly different from normal. She had noticed people who were pretending not to watch her. But she did not immediately assume the worst. Growing up on Earth had taught her something simple. Panic was rarely useful. When something felt wrong, you paid attention first. You gathered information. You waited for the right moment to act. It was not a special skill. It was just something many humans learned without realizing it. During her first week at Nova Prime University, an alien classmate had asked her about Earth. "Is it true your planet has storms that can destroy entire cities?" he asked. Emily had laughed. "Sometimes. And dangerous animals?" "Yes." "And you still live there?" Emily shrugged. Everyone lives somewhere. The alien student had stared at her for several seconds before saying, "That is a very strange human answer." Emily never knew how to explain that Earth did not feel like a place trying to kill her. It was home. The dangerous parts were simply part of the background. But Valor was beginning to understand something. The things humans considered normal revealed more than their weapons ever could. That evening, Emily left the main academic building and entered the quieter section of campus. The artificial lights above the walkway reflected against the glass towers around her. She stopped near a small garden area and looked up at the stars. For a moment, she missed Earth. She missed familiar skies. She missed the sound of rain against her bedroom window. She missed being somewhere nobody expected anything from her. A few seconds later, her communicator vibrated. "Emily, are you coming to the study group tonight?" It was her friend Sarah from the biology department. Emily looked back toward the university buildings. "I might be late. I have the feeling I am being followed." There was a pause. "Wait, are you joking?" Emily looked around carefully. "I hope so." She ended the call and continued walking. She still did not know who was watching her. She still did not know why. But somewhere above the campus, Valor Kess made his final decision. Proceed with the retrieval. His team prepared for what they believed would be an easy assignment. A student. A civilian. A human with no reason to resist. But as Emily walked alone beneath the alien sky, she felt something she had not felt in years. Not fear. Not yet. Something else. The quiet awareness that something had changed. And deep inside, the part of her shaped by a lifetime on Earth was already paying attention. Emily Carter had spent most of her life believing that the scariest moments were the ones where everyone else was afraid. She was learning that sometimes the quiet moments were the ones that mattered most. The Nova Prime campus had become unusually calm after midnight. The crowds had disappeared, the study halls had closed, and the bright artificial lights along the walkways made the entire university feel almost peaceful. Almost. Emily walked slowly toward her residential building, one hand holding her backpack strap, the other holding her communicator. She was not running. She was not hiding. But she was paying attention. On Earth, her father used to tell her something simple whenever she went hiking alone. The world usually gives you warnings before it gives you problems. You just have to notice them. At the time, Emily thought it was just another piece of advice from a parent who worried too much. Now, standing on an alien planet thousands of light years away, she understood exactly what he meant. The footsteps behind her stopped whenever she stopped. The reflections in the glass walls showed movement that did not match the people walking nearby. Someone was following her. Emily quietly opened her student directory and checked the campus safety map. Not because she expected it to solve everything, but because gathering information helped her stay calm. That was the difference between fear and panic. Fear told you something was wrong. Panic told you to stop thinking. Emily had never been good at panic. A few minutes later, she reached a smaller service path behind the science buildings. It was not the shortest route back to her dorm, but it was usually quieter. She paused near a maintenance station and looked at the empty walkway ahead. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "That is definitely not normal." Above her, hidden from ordinary campus sensors, Valor Kess watched the same scene through his team's equipment. He expected the moment when the human would finally realize she was trapped. Instead, she stood there calmly, studying her surroundings. "She knows," one of the Karuan hunters said. Valor looked closer. "No, she suspects." "Is there a difference?" the hunter asked. Valor did not answer immediately. There was a difference. Suspicion was a thought. Awareness was something deeper. The human was not reacting to a threat. She was adjusting to one. That was unusual. The retrieval team moved into position. Their plan was simple. Approach quietly. Avoid unnecessary attention. Convince the student to come with them. They had no reason to believe Emily would be difficult. After all, she was not trained military personnel. She was not a security officer. She was a college student who spent her evenings reading biology reports and complaining about cafeteria food. At least, that was what the records showed. Emily heard the soft sound of movement behind her. She turned around. For the first time, she saw them clearly. Tall figures wearing dark protective clothing, standing several yards away. Their appearance alone would have frightened many people. Their gray-blue skin, unusual eyes, and unfamiliar equipment made it obvious they were not human. Emily took a slow breath. "Can I help you?" she asked. The Karuan leading the group stepped forward. Valor Kess. His voice was calm through the translator. "Emily Carter. We need you to come with us for a short conversation." Emily looked at him carefully. That usually means it is not a short conversation. For a brief moment, nobody spoke. Valor had expected confusion. Instead, he received a dry human joke. It was such a small thing, but it bothered him more than anger would have. "You understand that you are in no position to refuse," he said. Emily looked around at the empty walkway. She knew he was right. She knew the situation was serious. She knew she was far from home. A normal person would probably be terrified. And Emily was scared. She felt it in her chest. She felt the uncertainty. She felt the weight of not knowing what would happen next. But she also remembered every difficult exam, every uncomfortable situation, every moment on Earth where she had to stay calm and figure things out. She lowered her backpack from her shoulder and held it in front of her. "Before we go anywhere," she said, "I have one question." Valor watched her carefully. "What question?" Emily looked directly at him. "Who exactly thinks kidnapping a student is a good first impression?" For the first time that night, the Karuan hunter had no immediate answer. Because the human they expected to capture was not behaving like prey. She was behaving like someone trying to understand the situation. And Valor Kess was beginning to realize that those were two very different things. Emily Carter expected many things when she left Earth. She expected strange languages, unfamiliar customs, and the occasional awkward conversation with someone who had never seen a human before. She did not expect to be sitting inside an alien transport vehicle while the person who arranged her capture calmly explained that she was part of a research assignment. The inside of the Karuan vessel was surprisingly quiet. There were no dramatic alarms, no threatening speeches, no signs of chaos. Just smooth metal walls, soft blue lights, and a level of technology that reminded Emily she was very far from home. She sat across from Valor Kess, who studied her through the transparent display on his tablet. "You are taking this unusually well," he said. Emily looked out the window at the stars passing by. "I'm not sure I would call it well." She paused for a moment. "I am trying not to make a bad situation worse." Valor tilted his head slightly. Most species respond differently when removed from their environment. Most species probably do not spend their childhoods practicing emergency drills at school, Emily replied. The Karuan hunter looked confused. "Emergency drills?" Emily nodded. "Fire alarms. Severe weather alerts. Earthquake training. Basic safety stuff." Valor looked at the data again. "Your home world required children to prepare for disasters?" Emily gave a small smile. "Earth has a lot going on." That answer stayed with him. To Valor, planets were categorized by danger levels. Resources, climate, hostile conditions. Earth had always appeared on those charts as a difficult world, but not necessarily an important one. A planet that humanity had overcome through technology. Yet sitting across from him was someone who treated survival preparation as a normal part of growing up. The first examination began shortly after they reached the Karuan research vessel. Emily was placed in a comfortable observation room rather than a prison cell. Valor had insisted on that. He did not know why exactly. Perhaps because the situation felt less like capturing a dangerous subject and more like studying an unanswered question. A researcher named Dr. Salera entered the room. She was a member of the Karuan Medical Division, with silver markings along her face and calm golden eyes. "Emily Carter," she said through the translator. "We are going to perform a standard biological assessment. It will not cause discomfort." Emily nodded. Good. Because I would prefer not to start my first experience with alien science by becoming a medical emergency. Dr. Celera almost smiled. Almost. Your humor appears to remain active under stress. It helps, Emily said. My dad always said if you can still make a joke, you are probably still thinking clearly. The tests began. The Karuan examined her basic physical responses, environmental adaptation, and neurological patterns. At first, the results seemed normal. Then the questions started. Your bones are denser than expected, Dr. Celera said. Your muscle recovery is higher than average for your species classification. Emily shrugged. I exercise sometimes. The doctor looked at the data. Your planet's gravity is significantly stronger than many civilized worlds. Yes. Your atmosphere contains more biological variation than most inhabited planets. That sounds like Earth. Dr. Celera stopped and looked at her. You say that as if it is ordinary. Emily looked away for a moment. For the first time since leaving campus, she felt something heavier than uncertainty. She felt homesickness. It is ordinary to me, she said quietly. That does not mean it is easy. Vaylor watched from behind the observation glass. He had expected to find a weakness, something that proved humanity was fragile. Instead, every answer created another question. The data was not showing an enhanced soldier. It was showing something much stranger. A person shaped by an environment most species would consider extreme. When the examination ended, Dr. Celera looked at Vaylor with a serious expression. Her records are incomplete. Vaylor frowned. Incomplete. The doctor nodded slowly. The system identifies her as a civilian. But biologically, she does not match our expectations of a civilian from a mild world. Vaylor looked back at Emily sitting alone in the room. She was drinking water from a small container and checking messages from Earth. She looked ordinary again. A student missing home. A daughter answering texts from her family. Someone who wanted to return to her normal life. But Vaylor was beginning to understand the mistake everyone had made. They had looked at humanity and measured what humans carried. Their machines. Their weapons. Their technology. They had never measured what humans carried inside themselves. The first thing Emily Carter noticed was that everyone on the Karuan research vessel had stopped pretending they understood her. For the first few hours, they treated her like an interesting discovery. A rare human specimen. A simple case study. But after reviewing the latest results, the quiet confidence around the ship had disappeared. Emily sat in the observation room with a small cup of warm tea, watching the stars outside the window. She had asked for coffee first, but the Karuan machines had produced something that looked and smelled like coffee while tasting like a science experiment. She decided not to complain. Some battles were not worth fighting. Dr. Celera entered the room carrying a digital tablet. Her expression was thoughtful. You are not reacting the way we predicted. Emily looked up. That seems to be a common theme since I arrived here. The doctor studied her carefully. Most individuals placed in unfamiliar environments experience significant mental stress. Your stress levels increase, but your decision-making remains stable. Emily smiled slightly. I am stressed. Celera looked surprised. You are? Of course I am. Emily placed the cup down. I have been taken away from my university, my friends, and my family. I am somewhere I have never been before, surrounded by people who studied me before they even met me. She paused. That is stressful. The doctor became quiet. Then why do you appear calm? Emily thought about the question. She had never considered herself calm. Growing up, she was the person who worried before exams, who checked weather reports before road trips, who made backup plans for backup plans. Her friends sometimes joked that she prepared for situations that would probably never happen. But on Earth, sometimes the unlikely happened. I guess I learned that being scared and staying focused can happen at the same time, Emily said. Those things are not opposites. Later, Vaylor Kess joined the conversation. He stood near the doorway, his posture more careful than before. The confident hunter from the university was gone. Now he looked like someone searching for an answer. Your world created unusual survival patterns, he said. Emily glanced at him. You make Earth sound like a terrible place. Is it not? Vaylor asked honestly. Emily looked toward the stars. It can be difficult. She smiled softly. But difficult does not mean terrible. That answer confused him. To the Karuan, harsh conditions were obstacles to overcome or environments to avoid. They did not understand how a species could love a place that challenged them every day. Tell me about Earth, Vaylor said. Emily raised an eyebrow. That is a very big question. Then start with something small. For a moment, Emily thought about giving him the dramatic answer he probably expected. She could talk about oceans, mountains, storms, or the countless dangers recorded in alien reports. Instead, she said, rain. Vaylor waited. Rain. Yes. On Earth, sometimes you wake up and it is raining outside. Everything is gray, and people complain about the weather. But then you get coffee, sit near a window, and it feels peaceful. Vaylor looked genuinely confused. You find comfort in environmental conditions that reduce visibility and movement. Emily laughed quietly. When you say it like that, it sounds strange. The conversation continued longer than either of them expected. For the first time, Vaylor was not studying a human. He was talking to one. He learned that Emily was not fearless. She missed home. She worried about her classes. She wondered if her parents were scared because they had not heard from her. She was not some mysterious creature from a dangerous planet. She was a person, but that was exactly what made the information harder to understand. A creature did not choose kindness. A creature did not remain thoughtful while surrounded by uncertainty. A creature did not help others simply because it was the right thing to do. As Vaylor reviewed Emily's file again that night, he noticed something he had missed before. There was no record of military service. No special training. No genetic enhancement. No secret program. Just a normal human life on Earth. He slowly closed the file. The mistake was becoming clear. They had searched for the reason Emily was unusual. They had never considered that the reason was because she was completely normal by human standards. Vaylor Kess had spent years learning how to identify dangerous species. He studied movement patterns, instincts, intelligence levels, and survival behavior. He believed every creature revealed itself when placed under pressure. Fear exposed weakness. Stress exposed limits. Uncertainty exposed instinct. But Emily Carter continued to challenge everything he believed. She was not stronger than the Kruan hunters. She was not faster. She did not possess advanced technology or special abilities. She was simply adapting. And that was becoming the most difficult thing for Vaylor to understand. The research vessel moved deeper into Kruan-controlled space, carrying Emily farther away from Nova Prime and everything familiar. She sat in the observation room reviewing her university assignments on her communicator. The situation was strange enough that she almost laughed. A few days ago, her biggest problem had been finishing a difficult biology presentation. Now she was sitting on an alien ship while a group of researchers tried to understand why she could stay calm. "You are still working?" Vaylor asked when he entered the room. Emily looked up. "I have deadlines." Vaylor stared at her. "You were taken from your university." "Yes." "You are being studied by another species." "Yes." "And you are worried about assignments?" Emily looked at him and smiled. You would be surprised how comforting normal problems can feel. That answer stayed with him. The Kruan understood survival. They understood preparation. But they did not understand the human connection to ordinary life. To them, survival was about escaping danger. To Emily, survival was about continuing to live even when things became difficult. Later that day, Dr. Sellera requested another evaluation. This time, she wanted to understand something beyond physical adaptation. "Your reactions are unusual," she explained. "Not because you lack fear, because you continue functioning while experiencing it." Emily sat across from her. "Is that unusual?" "Among most civilized species, yes." Emily thought about that. Maybe because most civilizations built environments to remove challenges. Sellera looked interested. "And humans did not." Emily laughed softly. "Humans try. We build technology, cities, and systems to make life easier. But Earth still reminds us that we are not completely in control." She paused. "You learned that early." The doctor reviewed the information again. "Your planet has extreme weather events, biological hazards, and environmental instability. That sounds worse when you list it like that. But you still describe it as home." Emily looked down at her hands. "Because it is." There was a quiet moment. For the first time, Sellera did not see a research subject. She saw someone who missed a place she loved. Someone who wanted to go back. Someone who had never thought of herself as unusual. Meanwhile, Vaylor continued reviewing the old records of Earth. The information was scattered across thousands of reports. Human history, environmental studies, exploration records, medical data. The more he read, the more confused he became. Earth was not dangerous because humans had failed to control it. Earth was dangerous because humans had learned to live with challenges that other species avoided. He opened an old planetary classification report. Earth was listed as a high-risk environment. He looked at Emily's student profile beside it. The contrast seemed impossible. A dangerous world. An ordinary student. Two pieces of information that should not fit together. "What are you looking for?" Emily asked from behind him. Vaylor turned. She had entered the room, carrying 2 cups of tea. She offered one to him. "The machine made extra," she explained. Vaylor accepted it carefully. "I am trying to understand your species." Emily sat down across from him. "Good luck." A small smile appeared on her face. "Humans are still trying to understand ourselves." For a moment, Vaylor almost smiled too. Then an alert appeared on the ship's main display. The research team had received a message from the organization that hired them. They wanted Emily transferred immediately. No further observation. No additional study. The reason was simple. They had reviewed the data. They had seen enough. Vaylor looked at the message and felt something he had not expected. Concern. Because the people who wanted Emily now did not see her as a person. They saw her as a discovery. And for the first time since the mission began, Vaylor wondered if the greatest danger surrounding Emily Carter was not the human herself. It was the people who had failed to understand her. Vaylor Kess had always believed the most dangerous decisions were made by those who acted without understanding the situation. That was why the message from the Karuan Command Division bothered him. They wanted Emily Carter transferred immediately. No more observation. No more questions. No more conversations. Just a simple order. Deliver the human. Vaylor stared at the message for several seconds before closing the display. Dr. Celera noticed his hesitation. "You are questioning the order," she said. Vaylor looked toward the observation room, where Emily was sitting with her university notes spread across the table. "I am questioning the reason behind it." Celera lowered her voice. "The organization that requested her does not usually explain their reasons. That is exactly the problem." For the first time since the mission began, Vaylor was not thinking like a hunter. He was thinking like someone responsible for another person's safety. Emily noticed the change when he entered the room. She could tell something was different. "Something happened," she said. Vaylor looked surprised. "How did you know?" Emily closed her notebook. "Because you are usually very confident. Today you look like someone who just received bad news." He almost smiled. The fact that she could read him so easily was becoming less surprising. "You are being transferred." Emily became quiet. Not afraid. Not immediately. Just quiet. "Where?" "I do not know." That answer concerned her more than anything else. Emily had learned something during her time on the ship. Unknown situations were difficult, but people who refused to provide information were usually the bigger problem. She looked at Vaylor carefully. "Do you think I will be safe?" He did not answer right away. And that was enough of an answer. Emily looked down for a moment. A normal person might have started asking questions immediately. "Why me? What do they want? How do I get home?" Those thoughts moved through her mind quickly. She missed Earth. She missed her parents. She missed simple things like walking into a grocery store and understanding every label. She missed being a person instead of a mystery. But another thought appeared right behind those feelings. Vaylor was helping her. A member of the same group that had taken her away was now warning her. That mattered. "What happens if you refuse?" Emily asked. Vaylor looked at her. "There will be consequences." "For you?" "Yes." Emily was silent for a moment. Then she said, "That is a bad deal." Vaylor looked confused. "A bad deal?" "Yes. You helped me because you started seeing me as a person. Now they want you to forget that." Her words were simple, but they affected him. The Karuan had spent centuries studying other species. They had records, categories, and classifications for nearly every civilization they encountered. But they rarely considered the individual behind those classifications. A human was a species, a threat level, a biological category. Emily Carter was reminding him that a human was also a person. The ship continued moving through deep space. Outside the windows, distant stars passed like small points of light. Inside, a decision was being made. Vaylor accessed the navigation system and changed the route. It was a small adjustment, almost impossible to notice, but it changed their destination. Emily looked at the new coordinates. "Where are we going?" Vaylor answered honestly. "Somewhere they will not expect." She studied him carefully. "You understand that helping me probably makes your life more complicated." "Yes." "You understand that I am still just a student?" "Yes." You understand that I do not know some secret human ability or hidden weapon. Vaylor looked at her. That is what makes this difficult. Emily smiled slightly. You keep expecting me to be something else. Vaylor looked away. Because she was right. He had expected a mystery, a hidden danger, a powerful secret. Instead, he found a young woman who was scared, confused, and trying to do the right thing anyway. The ship changed course toward the outer regions of Karuan space. Behind them, the original command center received the updated route information. The message was brief. The human was no longer being delivered. And for the first time, the people who had been hunting Emily Carter realized something important. The person they underestimated was not the only one who had changed during this mission. The first thing Emily Carter noticed about the outer regions of space was how quiet they were. Not peaceful, not empty, just quiet in a way that made her understand how small one person could feel. She stood near the observation window of the Karuan vessel, watching distant stars move slowly across the darkness. A week ago, she had been worried about exams, missed assignments, and whether the coffee machine in her university building would ever make something that actually tasted like coffee. Now she was traveling through unknown space with an alien hunter who had decided to risk everything by helping her. Somehow, that felt less impossible than it should have. Vaylor Kess entered the room, carrying 2 data tablets. His expression was serious, but Emily noticed something different. He no longer looked at her like a problem to solve. He looked at her like someone whose opinion mattered. We have limited time, Vaylor said. Emily nodded. Because they are coming for us? Yes. And because of me? Vaylor paused. Because of what they believe you represent. Emily looked confused. I am a student. That is what makes their interest unusual. He placed the tablet on the table. They expected to find something hidden. A special ability. A military project. A secret human advancement. Emily looked at the information. And they did not. Vaylor looked at her. They found you. She smiled slightly. That sounds disappointing for them. Vaylor almost laughed. Almost. It was another strange human habit. Finding humor in situations that should have been uncomfortable. But Emily understood something Vaylor was still learning. Humor was not a sign that someone did not care. Sometimes it was how people handled things they cared about deeply. The ship entered a remote area near a small abandoned research station. Vaylor explained that they could stay there temporarily while he figured out their next move. Emily listened carefully. She did not interrupt. She did not argue. But when he finished, she asked the question he expected least. What happens to you? Vaylor looked surprised. What do you mean? You helped me. They will know. He looked away. That is my concern. Emily shook her head. No, it is our concern. The words were simple, but Vaylor noticed the difference. She did not say it because she wanted to create a dramatic moment. She said it because that was how she saw the situation. They were both involved now. The idea seemed obvious to her. That was what confused him most about humans. They created connections quickly. They built loyalty without requiring long agreements or complicated rules. Later, while exploring the abandoned station, Emily noticed several damaged systems and outdated equipment. To Vaylor, the station was simply a temporary shelter. To Emily, it was a problem waiting to be solved. She checked the controls, examined the layout, and started making notes. Vaylor watched with curiosity. What are you doing? He asked. Trying to understand what still works. You can repair alien technology? Emily looked embarrassed. Not really, but machines usually have patterns. If you understand the purpose, you can usually figure out the rest. Vaylor looked at the station around them. You say that with confidence. Emily shrugged. My father used to fix everything at home. Broken appliances, old computers, anything that stopped working. He always said most problems are just things you have not understood yet. That answer stayed with Vaylor, because it sounded like the same principle behind everything he had learned about humanity. They did not always have the strongest tools. They did not always have the easiest path. But they kept trying to understand problems instead of accepting defeat. Hours passed. The station slowly became more functional. Small lights turned on. Basic systems returned. Nothing impressive. Nothing that would appear extraordinary in a report. But Vaylor understood the importance of what he was seeing. Emily Carter was not revealing some hidden power. She was simply doing what humans always seem to do. They arrived somewhere unfamiliar, faced uncertainty, and started building a way forward. Then the communication system activated. A message appeared from Karuan Command. They had found them. Vaylor read the transmission silently. Emily watched his expression change. How bad is it? She asked. Valor looked at her. They are no longer asking for you. Emily frowned. Then what are they asking for? He turned the screen toward her. One sentence appeared. Return the human, or explain why a Karuan hunter chose to protect her. Emily stared at the message. For the first time, she realized something important. This was no longer only about her. Somewhere along the way, Valor had become part of the story too, and the galaxy was beginning to notice. For the first time since leaving Earth, Emily Carter saw a familiar sky. Not because the stars looked the same. They did not. The constellations were different. The colors were different. Everything about the universe around her reminded her that she was far from home. But when she stepped outside the abandoned station and looked toward the horizon of the small moon below, she felt something she had not felt in days. A sense of peace. Maybe because she finally understood something. Home was not only a place. Sometimes home was the people who reminded you who you were. Inside the station, Valor Kess studied the incoming message again. The Karuan Command Division wanted answers. They wanted to know why a trained hunter had abandoned a mission because of one human student. Valor had spent years following orders without question. He believed discipline was the foundation of civilization. But now he understood that following every order did not always mean doing the right thing. Emily noticed him standing silently near the communication panel. You are thinking too much, she said. Valor looked at her. How can you know that? Emily smiled. Because you have the same expression my dad gets when he is trying to fix something complicated. Valor looked confused. Your father repairs machines? Sometimes. She paused. Sometimes he just sits there and thinks until he understands the problem. Valor looked back at the message. I have never considered that understanding requires patience. Emily nodded. Most important things do. The response to Karuan Command was sent shortly afterward. Valor did not send a report about a dangerous human. He sent a report about a person. He explained Emily's actions, her decisions, and the simple moments that revealed more than any test could. He explained that humanity was not dangerous because humans were aggressive. Humanity was difficult to predict because humans adapted. They learned. They changed. They cared. The response came several hours later. The message was not an order. It was a request for a meeting. A request to understand. Months later, the story of Emily Carter reached places she never expected. The Galactic Council reviewed the records of the incident. Scientists studied the human data again. Not because they discovered a new weapon. Not because they found a hidden ability. They studied humanity because they finally asked the right question. Not what makes humans dangerous, but what makes humans continue. Emily eventually returned to Nova Prime University. Her life did not transform into the adventure stories people imagined. She still attended classes. She still complained about difficult assignments. She still drank coffee that was sometimes terrible. Her friends still joked that she somehow managed to disappear for the strangest reasons. But something had changed. The galaxy no longer saw Earth as just a difficult world. They saw it as the place that created people like Emily. One afternoon, Valor visited her university. He was no longer wearing the uniform of a hunter. He was simply there as someone who wanted to understand a friend. They walked through the campus gardens, watching students from dozens of worlds moving between classes. I used to think survival meant defeating challenges, Valor said. Emily looked at him. What do you think now? He looked toward the people around them. I think survival means continuing to care even after experiencing challenges. Emily smiled. That sounds like something a human would say. Valor gave a small nod. Perhaps I have learned. Emily looked up at the alien sky above Nova Prime. She thought about Earth, about her family, about the strange journey that began with someone deciding she was only an ordinary student. She realized something simple. Being ordinary did not mean being insignificant. Every person carried a story that others could not see. Every person survived battles that nobody else knew about. The galaxy searched for extraordinary beings, but sometimes the most remarkable things were hidden inside ordinary lives. And that was the lesson humanity brought to the stars. They were never special because they had no weaknesses. They were special because they faced a universe full of uncertainty, felt fear, carried doubts, and still chose to move forward.